guys, I put so much time and effort and energy into this. It took me years to figure this out. And a lot of people in personal development won't tell you this, not because they don't mean well, it's because they don't know. They're helping you with belief change, or they're helping you with strategies, or they're trying to give you, hey, here's the 3-step process to eliminate your limiting beliefs, or they're trying to give you like the system or the process, something like that, but they're not getting to the root cause. And it's not their fault. It's just they don't know any better. I had to spend years trying to figure this out, but you guys need this, because if you don't have this, like, and hopefully none of you are at my worst, where I was at my worst. I want to help you get ahead of this before it gets to that point, right? Maybe you were where I was at when things were good, but they weren't great, right? That's when you want to start solving this thing. You want to, like they say, kill the monster while it's little, right? So here's what the solution is, and this is what really started to turn it around for me. The solution is, don't work harder. You got to start to work higher. The solution is, don't work harder. You have to start to work higher. Now, what do I mean by don't work harder, work higher? In a moment, I'm going to share with you a framework, right, that I came up with, and I came up with this that night. And as I go through this framework, I want you to find yourself in the framework. I want you to see and notice maybe what's been holding you back right now. Notice maybe where one or two of your biggest challenges have been, maybe where you've been out of alignment, and start to see or start to become aware of what might be holding you back, right? And so in order for us to get to the point of figuring out your internal conflicts, I have to give you a little bit of information about where all these things come from. Does that make sense? So as I go through this model, start to find yourself and start to see what might be holding you back. Does that make sense? So here we go. I call this the 7 levels of self-mastery. And so this is what I mean. You can have a conflict with your internal alignment. And so your internal alignment is this right here. Every human being has these as like their basic structure. Okay. They just have them. The way that they define them is slightly different. And the way that, and I'll explain, right? So basically you have on the top here, number 1 is your mission and your higher purpose. That's your mission and your higher purpose. The number 2 is you have your identity, which is who you believe you are. Do you guys follow me on this? Then you have worldview, which is what people would call your mindset. Also your beliefs. I'll get there in a moment. So you have your mission, you have your identity, you have your worldview and your mindset. Underneath that, you have your dominant energy, or also your emotions, like your emotional state, or the state that you show up in every day. So that's how you show up. That's your physical energy. That's your masculine, feminine energy. That's your emotions that you show up as every day. That's your state, how you show up to the world. Make sense? And then so underneath that, you have your skills, resources, and knowledge, which is your resources. Also, it's what you believe you have access to: time, money, things like that, resourcefulness. And then number 6 is your habits, actions, and behaviors. So this is what you do. And then finally, number 7 is your environment and your conditioning. Number 7 is your environment and your conditioning. All 7 of these play with each other. They all interrelate. What tends to happen though is the higher ones, if you're able to take control of the higher ones have more influence over the lower ones, right? But what most people do is they live their life not from the top down, but from the bottom up. Most people, and see yourself in this, most people they allow their environment when they were growing up, or their environment they're living in now, or their conditioning from the past to determine what they do, their habits, their actions, their behaviors. And then they allow their environment or their conditioning or their habits and actions to affect what they believe they can do, or what they believe they have access to, or their skill level or their knowledge. And then they're held back because of the trapped emotions that they got when they were younger, right? So their conditioning affects their emotions, which affects what they believe about themselves, their mindset, and they believe that who they are is just a product of their conditioning. You follow me? You follow me on this? And so at that point, because you're being held back so much from the lower end of the spectrum, it's very, very difficult to actually reach your mission or your purpose, if you even have one at that point. And so here's actually a major challenge. What a lot of people do, see that line right there between 4 and 5? That's the danger line. And the reason why that's the danger line is, take a look at this. What did I explain to you before? What most people do when they try to make a shift is they focus strictly on the bottom three. They try to change, they try to get more skills, resources, or knowledge. So conscious learning, right? They try to get more, I'm going to read more books. I'm going to go to this seminar. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to learn the skills, right? I'm going to learn the business system. And then it doesn't work. They make some progress, but then they start to fall off a little bit. They go, I need to double down. I have to actually, take action on this. It's not enough to just know it. I need to install more habits. And they'll like a New Year's resolution. And they'll go really deep on a New Year's resolution. They'll get all fired up and then they'll burn out because they take all this action, then their motivation dies down. It's not sustainable long term. Well, why does that happen? It's because now they're going in a perpetual loop. And then so they're trying to, force more actions, force more behaviors, trying to cram more skills. It's all about personal development and personal growth, action skills, action skills, action skills. Finally, they burn out and they go, none of this stuff works. It must be my environment. It must be the group that I'm involved in. It must be the relationship that I'm in. It must be my partner. It's a blame game, right? It must be my work. I got to change careers. I'm not fulfilled here. So then they change career because they're cycling 5 and 6 repeatedly, and they go, it can't be any of that. I tried everything. Let me go change my environment. And so they change environments. But it's what happened with me. I changed relationships and it didn't make anything better. Why? Because wherever you go with you. They're focusing on the bottom three. They haven't actually focused on the top four, which is where all of the change would be made. Who here follows? If you follow, comment yes in the chat if this is starting to make sense. Okay. And so your mission, that's, what you're made to do in the world. Your identity is who you believe you are. Your mindset, your worldview, that's your beliefs. That's, what you believe about life, your dominant energy and emotions. That could be, happiness, joy, fulfillment. That could also be trapped negative emotions like anger, sadness, fear, guilt, shame. I don't want to fear of failure, things like that. So start to look down this list here. Where are you potentially strongest right now? And where might you have some potential challenges? Where might you be out of alignment? Do you not fully step into your identity as a high value man with self-mastery? Do you not fully step into who you really are, your potential? Do you have some beliefs that are holding you back? Maybe do you have some trapped emotions or low energy, or maybe you're not showing up every day the way that you're supposed to? Maybe there's a lack of skills or resources or knowledge, or maybe you're trying to tell yourself a story like there's not enough money or time. Like I don't have the right resources, right? You're telling yourself that story. Or maybe you're not doing the right habits or actions. Maybe you're procrastinating. Or maybe you feel like, hey, it's my past. I'm held back by my past. I'm held back by my conditioning. My environment's a challenge. Take a look at this and where might you be out of alignment? And just comment in the chat what you're beginning to notice, what you're beginning to realize here. And how might this have already been holding you back in life? And I don't want to sound negative, but if the misalignment were to continue, what would that potentially hold you back from long term? And just comment that in the chat. And so we're gonna zone in on some of this here today to help you actually find the root cause of your internal conflicts and what's going on. We're gonna do that workshop here in a little bit. Now, what most people say though is they say what? They go, just fix your mindset. You just got to fix your mindset. You ever hear that before? Fix your mindset used to drive me nuts because it's what everybody would say. It was like a catch-all buzzword. Just fix your mindset, fix your mindset. Finally, I'm like, what does that even mean? I got so frustrated with that term because it just became what everybody said. But if you take a look here at this list, right, the reason why just fixing your mindset doesn't work is because you've got 6 other levels that could be out of alignment. Does that make sense? And by the way, if you have your mindset taken care of, but your identity, you don't actually believe you're the person that can achieve your outcome, the higher ones on the list have more influence over the lower when you get there. So if you don't believe you're the type of person that can do it, all the belief change in the world won't actually help. Or if you're still being held back by your conditioning, you'll try to cut down the tree of those beliefs and they're going to grow back like weeds. So we got to make sure that we're holistic in this model. So like I said, most people say fix your mindset, but mindset's just one piece. The reason why it doesn't make sense when people say that sometimes is because they're not defining specifically what mindset is. So in order for us to help get you to the root cause of your internal conflicts, we got to define what mindset is. Now, what mindset is, there's four components of mindset. Number one is what you're most aware of. And what you're most aware of is your attitudes. Your attitudes, that's what you're very conscious of day to day. You're pretty aware of your general attitudes, aren't you? Like, hey, I'm in a good mood, I'm in a bad mood, I'm feeling kind of frustrated. Your general demeanor and attitude, that's relatively conscious. You're very aware of that. Now, the next level is your beliefs. That's still conscious, but it's not quite as conscious as your attitudes. If I ask you, hey, what are some of your beliefs about life? What's your beliefs about relationships? You'd be able to tell me. You might not be able to tell me in gigantic, great detail, but you're pretty much able to tell me, hey, I'm being held back because of XYZ limiting belief, or, you understand that. A lot of us understand we have limiting beliefs and are trying to change them, right? So that's relatively conscious. Now, there's one level even lower than beliefs, which is less, you can still access it consciously, but it's a little bit less conscious, and that's your values. And what values are what's most important to you in a specific category. So it's what's most important to you in life. It could be what's most important to you in career. It could be what's most important to you in relationships. Now, this is less conscious than beliefs. You're going to have an easier time telling me what your beliefs are if I go, hey, what's your top 10 values in the area of career and relationship? You're like, wait, what are you talking about? You'd be able to give me a few, and you'll be able to get the list if I actually ask you and prompt you. But it's not easily available just off the top of your head. You have to put a little bit of thought into it. Does that make sense? But so values are the deepest level of your unconscious mind that you can still talk about. Underneath values, so mindset, there's something called prime concerns or prime directives. Have you ever, this is like the operating system behind what's going on in the background. So you have your computer screen you're looking at, or maybe you're looking at your phone. You see the monitor, you see the desktop, right? But underneath the desktop, there's all the ones and zeros and the coding. Prime concerns is kind of like that. Have you ever had a situation where you're trying to word a feeling to somebody like, oh my God, I feel kind of like, I'm like frustrated, but it's also this, and you're trying to word it, but you can't really put words to it. That's a prime concern. That's driving your behavior, right? So there's a very specific process that we have to use to get that. But so for the purposes here, what's going to be really most valuable is to help us to figure out what your values are, because that's the deepest level of programming in your unconscious that we can still talk about. And so if you try to change your attitudes or try to change your beliefs consciously, you might be able to consciously do it, but a lot of times they're going to grow back because your beliefs are tied to your values. Does that make sense? So if we want to shift the beliefs, a lot of times we don't want to attack the beliefs straight away. We want to go one level deeper to the values and pick up the root. You guys get that? So I'm just giving you a little bit of coming attractions here. We're going to do some work with values in a moment, so just stand by. Now, I want to explain to you, now that we know what the four levels of mindset are, what is an internal conflict specifically? Well, for our purposes, I've identified three types of internal conflicts. One type of internal conflict is called a parts conflict. So take a look there at the left. You see how parts conflict is in blue, and I have identity in blue. Parts conflict is, in other words, it's an identity conflict. And here's what this might look like or sound like. That's when you say a part of me knows that I'm made for more, but there's a part of me holding myself back. A part of me knows that I should go to the gym, but a part of me feels lazy. A part of me knows that I'm destined to be a success, but there's a part of me that I'm embarrassed and I feel like a failure. So it's an internal tug of war. It's an internal conflict, and it makes it very difficult for you to make progress. Does that make sense? So that's a parts conflict. That's at the identity level. We're going to be talking about a conflict in your mindset. And specifically for our purposes, we're going to be talking about a values conflict, which, remember I said a value is what you value most highly, what's most important to you in a specific area. So a values conflict is when you value two things very highly, but in the same category. So I value love and relationships, but I also value freedom. Can you see how that would create a conflict in a relationship? Or I value success and financial rewards and being great as an entrepreneur, and I also value being a family man. Can you see how that might create a conflict, right? Like, so on one hand, we're going for the career success, but on the other hand, we really value family. That's going to create a tug of war, right? It's like it's competing interests. So what do? It's not that it's a bad, they're both good values, but they're both competing for your attention. And that creates a conflict. Make sense? We got to figure out how to resolve those. And the third level of internal conflict is called a motivation conflict. Now, a motivation conflict, have you ever had, maybe you start an exercise program or a diet program and you lose the first 5, 10 pounds and you feel great. And then you just stop and you gain a couple pounds back or you get worse. This is a motivation conflict. There is, in anything that you value highly, there's what you're moving towards motivation wise, and there's what you're moving away from. So what you're moving away from is what you're trying to avoid. If you're moving towards health because you value health, vitality, being in the best shape, pushing yourself, that's a positive motivation, right? But many people have moving away from motivation, which is I value health because I don't want to be sick. I don't want to be fat. I don't want to be overweight. I don't want people to make fun of me. I don't want to feel this way, right? So it's an avoidance. And so anytime your motivation is trying to avoid something, what's going to happen is you'll do just enough to get out of the fire. And then once you feel like the fire's far enough away, you stop. And the only thing that's going to motivate you again is if the fire starts to creep up on you again. Does that make sense? So we got parts conflict, we got values conflict, and we got motivation conflict. What we're going to do today is we're going to find out where your specific internal conflicts are. So get ready to pull out a paper and pad, and we're going to start doing this. Now, this is an exercise that I do all the time. Whenever I'm working with somebody one-on-one, we'll go deep. Like I want to do like a deep dive into like what's holding them back, why are they stuck, what's going on, what area of life do they need the most help in. This exercise that I do, I always do this with people. I always find their values, because here's the thing: you don't always get what you want. You always get your values, unconsciously or not. You always get your values. So I always want to find out what's going on in the values that might be holding them back and what's causing the internal conflict. And then the rest of our time that we work together, this is like a diagnostic tool. And then once I understand that, then we can start to fix everything and start to get what they want. So we're going to do that here together today. Now, what specifically is a value? I gave you a little bit of information about this, but I just want to, because I want to make sure you get the most out of this. I want to give you the content that you need to get the most out of this. Now, your values are your deepest layer of unconscious programming that you can still consciously talk about. I told you before, there's something called prime concerns. That's really deep. That's like, it's like impulses that you can't even put into words. There's another way to get rid of that, which I do with people. But this is what we can actually talk about on this seminar here, on this workshop that we can talk about. So your values are the deepest level of unconscious programming that you can still talk about consciously. So what that means is your values are very good at finding internal conflicts. Your values are formed by your unconscious conditioning, right? So your values are showing you your autopilot. Like I said, this is like opening up your computer BIOS and seeing what's going on underneath the hood and finding out where all the viruses are. Anytime someone's not getting the results that they want, anytime here's where they want to go, and then here's what they're actually getting, right? Like that arrow there on the screen, 9 times out of 10, there's a conflict in the values. And so, like I told you a moment ago, whenever I work with people one-on-one, this is always a part of it to find out what the heck is really going on under the hood. And then when they, like I told you, until you make the unconscious conscious going to control your life, you're going to finally see right in front of you what's been holding you back. It makes it conscious for the first time.